About lifestyle and eczema. Is your lifestyle helping or hurting your eczema? And this is really a big one because sometimes when we have eczema, it's really something we're actually doing in our lifestyle to potentially cause the imbalances that are causing inflammation in our system. So, this is a really important one because sometimes we have control over some of these things, and we can really make some changes that make a huge change in our eczema. And we see this all the time when we start working with our patients and clients. Sometimes we start making these changes in the lifestyle, simple things that we're going to talk about today, things that you can start implementing today, and the changes start to happen, and within a month we see immense change in the skin. So I'm really excited to have this conversation with Clean Body practitioner and nutritionist Rachel today. So thank you, Rachel, for joining me in this conversation.
Thanks.
All right, so let's start here. We really want you to see your eczema as really just an alarm system. So it's not really the problem itself. The eczema symptoms, the itchiness, the redness, the inflammation, the oozing, all of it are just a reflection of an internal problem. And we need to figure out what that is. And sometimes the answer is in our lifestyle. So, number one, at Clean Body, we really like to look at your organ system. So, are your organ systems balanced? Are they showing imbalances? And when they show imbalances, this is when we see symptoms. And one of those symptoms is eczema. Now, what causes these organs to be imbalanced are toxic burdens on our system. And a lot of these we find in our lifestyle. So things like toxic exposures and toxic diet and poor fitness and toxic stress. And so that's what we're going to break down today, because that is what's filling what we like to call at Clean Body our Clean Body funnel. And our funnel is just this analogy we really like to use. And when it gets full, it overflows, and things like the toxic diet and the toxic stress and all of this can cause our funnel to overflow. And when our funnel overflows, we get symptoms. And one of the first symptoms we can sometimes get is eczema, because as that funnel is overflowing, let's say you're a person who eats a standard American diet, you're not really moving your body, you're not breathing, you're not drinking a lot of water, and this funnel gets stuck. Now, what does that mean? You might end up with constipation. So you're not exiting out of one of your main exits, which is your poop. Maybe you're not drinking a lot of water, so you're not exiting those toxins via your kidneys and your urinary system. Maybe you're not breathing, and maybe you're not moving your body to get your lymphatic system moving, and that you're not sweating. So these toxins are not coming out of you. So what happens is these toxins try to find this exit, and one of the first exits they're going to try to find is out your skin. And so this is where you can see some symptoms pop up on the skin, some inflammation starts to get triggered. These toxins can kind of trigger these inflammatory things to happen in the body, and then you're going to get eczema. Okay. So that's just kind of a little bit of a background as to why the method of the Clean Body system is a 3-step method. We first have to evaluate, then we have to optimize these Clean Body pillars, and then we can support your system if needed. So what we're going to focus on today is this step 2, which is optimize. And optimize is where we really look into your lifestyle and nutrition. Now, last week we covered nutrition. So if you want to do a deep dive into how to optimize nutrition, definitely go to the last live we did last week that I posted. But this week we're going to dive into these other lifestyle parts, which are the clean mind, clean fit, CleanEnviro, and clean routine. And we'll do a little bit of clean food today, but we covered that mostly last week. So we'll dive more into the other pillars today. So let's start with clean mind. Now, with clean mind, this is what we call this at Clean Body. This is really about understanding your fight or flight response. And so our or flight response can really look like when we are running from a bear in nature and we just need to get out of there. We're in survival mode, and we can be in survival mode all the time in today's world, unfortunately. And where we need to get in order to heal is rest and digest mode. And we really need to learn how to do that. So there are different ways to understand whether you're in fight or flight or you're in rest and digest. So when you are in fight or flight, emotionally, you might have feelings of anxiety. You might have feelings of fear, urgency. You might have racing thoughts, difficulty focusing, anger. And when you're in rest and digest mode, you are in a calm state, a relaxed state. You're feeling content, you're feeling serenity. And so emotionally, there are some things that can get triggered to let you know, okay, if this is happening to you frequently, this is something that is really potentially a cause of the eczema and exacerbating the eczema, because when you are in fight or flight, your body basically shuts down all the necessary processes to help detoxify, to lower inflammation, and then you're going to see your symptoms skyrocket, right? So anybody who has eczema knows that when they get stressed, their eczema is going way up. Physically, the fight or flight response looks like a rapid heart rate, shallow breathing, tense muscles, increased alertness, you sweating, jitteriness. And when you're in rest and digest mode, you're feeling really a normal heart rate, slow and deep breathing, relaxed muscles, steadiness. Your body temperature is really level. If you're someone who just is like sweating and hot and you're always hot, this is telling us you're in fight or flight mode. Okay. So we need to get you out of fight or flight mode. And this is really, really, really important. And not only does it affect your eczema, but it affects so many things that also affect eczema down the line. And kind of tying Rachel into this conversation, when we are in fight or flight mode, what happens to our digestion?
Yeah, you're not digesting your food if you're in fight or flight mode. There's a reason that we call the other side of the spectrum rest and digest, because if if you were running from a tiger, that's not a really good time for your body to be digesting food, because it's putting all of its energy into getting itself safe. But when you're kind of going through life in that fight or flight state, and your body is always thinking that you're in danger, it's never really getting to the point where it can digest food. And that's really, the first, one thing you can do today, at your next meal, is get yourself into rest and digest mode before you start eating. Just sit, look at your food, smell your food, take a deep breath, maybe give some thanks or say a prayer if that's part of your practice. But just letting your body know that food is coming in, it's going to start the digestive process. And that's going to enable you to break down your food more easily, to absorb nutrients from your food better, and to then eventually poop out the stuff that you don't need.
And Rachel, how many bites per chew are we supposed, or chews per bite? I don't know how you say
Yeah.
that. Are we supposed to be doing when we're eating?
Yeah. So you want to be aiming for about 30 chews per bite. Just try it. Of course, there's some variation there. Like if you're eating a raw carrot, for example, I actually did this practice recently. I counted my chews when I was eating a raw carrot, and I found I actually needed more than 30 for a raw carrot. But obviously, if you're eating something softer, you might need fewer. But just try it. Count your chews, see where you are, and see when you feel that urge to swallow, see how big that chunk of food might still be, and try giving it a few more chews.
Yes, because in order to heal, we've got to be digesting. We've got to be doing these regular processes of detoxification, of, hormonal function. All of these things are so necessary in order for our skin to heal. And if we are in fight or flight mode, we're not digesting, we're not detoxifying. And so all of those toxins are going out via our skin. We're not pooping, we're not doing all these things that we need to do. And when all of that stuff starts moving, the skin starts healing. So, clean mind is so important. And, the other thing that we really need to understand is, are there any traumas there? So if you're someone who's always in fight or flight mode, if you are always anxious, if you have depression. And of course, I know the skin can put you in that place too. So I know some of this is tied into having this condition as well. But we need to heal those traumas because those can really be exacerbating our fight or flight response and then therefore really triggering this inflammation in our body. So at Clean Body, we have something called the Clean Mind Protocol. And these are sessions that I can do individually with clients where we help to identify traumas. And really, this is kind of like me leading a guided meditation for you where you identify your own traumas. I help you to reprocess those, but really you're kind of doing this work. And then you go from a 10 out of 10, this is so heavy, this baggage is really weighing on you, to a 0 out of 10. And then you stop carrying the baggage. And in addition to that, we also have so many things that we offer, just modules and meditations and tools, because basically you just need a large toolbox, right? You need a huge toolbox in terms of how do I get myself out of fight or flight mode when I'm super itchy, when I just can't take it anymore. And I know how this feels when you're just digging into your skin and you're so itchy. You need those tools. And maybe sometimes we actually need to dive deeper, that it's not just about the tools, but it's about really diving in deep. I just released a podcast where I talked about a modality called Cereset. So that's another option. If you've been trying lots of different things, like you've been trying meditation and yoga and, all these different modalities, and they really aren't helping you get to that rest and digest response, definitely check out this podcast I just released. It's with a protocol that's called Cereset, and it actually it hooks you up to a machine where basically the machine reads your brain waves and then sends you back this sound response that basically gets your brain to relax and puts you into rest and digest mode, to just kind of say it simply. So check out the podcast if you're interested in this. If you're just having a hard time with this pillar, we need to find some tools to get you out of fight or flight. And often when there's a wall to healing, when you're just like, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm eating well, I'm doing everything else on these pillars, it might be here. And you may not even realize it because you are in the midst of the stress, and it's just become part of your lifestyle, so you don't even realize it. So this is something super important to unravel, and a really important pillar. Okay, now we're going to move on to clean food, and we did cover this in a lot of depth last week, so we're not going to do too much depth this week, but we do want to just cover some of our top 5 recommendations. So when we have when we have eczema, sometimes there are inflammatory foods that we want to maybe assess for and potentially just kind of avoid right off the bat if we're eating a lot of them, just because these can be inflammatory. And if that's something that's hard for you to do, we can also test you to see if there's sensitivity or allergy to these foods. But some of the top things with eczema that we notice is gluten might be a trigger. And so avoiding gluten might be something that you want to do. Avoiding dairy. Dairy can often be a trigger as well too. Sugar definitely can be a trigger. And Rachel can go a little more into that. We love for you to eat the rainbow. So just like this plate looks right here, we just want to see beautiful colors. A lot of the phytonutrients are in there. And then we want to see half your plate in colorful vegetables. So Rachel, tell us why this can be really helpful in healing the skin.
Yeah, so a lot of these things, gluten, dairy, and sugar, even if you don't have a unique sensitivity to those foods, they are more pro-inflammatory in everyone, especially if you're eating them in the amounts that they're typically eaten in the standard American diet. So much is just gluten, dairy, and sugar. You can have a whole meal of that. When we remove those foods or even minimize them to start off with, we're making space in our diet for more nutrient dense, whole, real, anti-inflammatory foods like eating the rainbow. So when we say eat the rainbow, we don't mean Skittles. We want you eating colorful plant foods. So like what you see on this plate here, The different colors in foods are an indication of what nutrients they contain. And so the more colors you get, the more nutrients you get, just the more balanced your diet is going to be. So pulling out those pro-inflammatory foods, those foods that can contribute to excess inflammation, we make space for more of those anti-inflammatory foods that can help bring down the inflammation and also just provide more nutrients that are healthy, not just for your skin, but for all of your organs.
Yeah, and this is how you can help your eczema. And on the flip side, how you can hurt your eczema is really by doing a lot of things that are pro-inflammatory, eating a lot of sugar, eating a lot of processed foods. And again, we delved really deep into this last week, so check out that live if you did miss it, because we really delved into all the different things you should be thinking about in terms of this clean body pillar. All right, moving on to what we at Clean Body call Clean Fit. And this is really about having a good movement program for yourself. And one of the reasons this is so important for an eczema person is because with eczema, your lymphatic system is typically really clogged. Rachel, can you tell us a little bit about what the lymphatic system is and why it's so important for eczema?
Yeah, if you've ever had like a virus, a cold, a sore throat, you've probably noticed that you get these enlarged bumps in your neck. Those are lymph glands. And you may have noticed them there, but we have them throughout our body and they really help things to flow and move and drain. And that includes things like toxins that we want to get out. They get enlarged when we're sick because that's the immune system trying to fight off and get rid of whatever is causing that illness. So, unlike the cardiovascular system, which has a pump, the heart, the lymphatic system doesn't have a pump. So, it really benefits from us kind of manually pumping in. And we do that through exercise, especially like jumping or using like a trampoline or a little rebounder. If you don't have one of those, even doing like jumping jacks is great. Dry brushing also helps to stimulate that flow. And then lymphatic massage is a specific type of massage. You could do it right now. You can just start behind your ears and kind of move down. There's an intuitive sense to doing it, I think, behind your ears, like your hands kind of know where to go. And that's just an easy thing that you can do every day to help support that drainage, again, so that things are draining the way they're supposed to and not coming out through your skin with eczema.
And a lot of us with eczema actually have these spots where we're super itchy, and it's actually where our lymph nodes are. So behind the ears is a really common, on your neck is a really common place, armpits are a common place, and this is where we actually have a lot of lymph nodes. And so often with eczema, the lymphatic system is just so super congested. And when you're scratching, what you're actually trying to do is get that lymphatic system moving. You're trying to get there. And if anyone with eczema, you guys know you're scratching, 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 and it's like in this deep place that you feel like you can't reach. That is your lymphatic system likely being really congested. So these things are really wonderful to do. And just moving your body gets that lymphatic system moving, in addition to so many other benefits: cardiovascular system, digestive system. All your systems do better when you move your body. And at Clean Body, we really focus on, it doesn't need to be full on exercise. It can be, walking around the block. It could be taking the stairs instead of taking the elevator. It could be, just simple movements, but often we aren't doing these. We're sitting stationary, especially if we have very severe eczema. We are in pain, we're not moving. And so we have to figure out some way to move this lymphatic system. So this is really important. Dry brushing could be something that's a possibility, but for some people with really severe eczema, the dry brushing might be a little bit too harsh. And if you guys want to check out our product recommendations, go to the link in my bio on Instagram or go to our website at cleanbody.health, and we have a product recommendations page there. And you can see under detox tools, you will see our dry brush recommendation. And I like one that it's basically basically either natural bristles or there's copper brushes as well too that get a little bit more stimulation going. If you do have eczema though, again, if you have open wounds and things like that, you may not want to dry brush over those areas. But where you don't have those open wounds, it could be a good thing. And if you can't do the dry brush, you also can just do lymphatic massage, which is kind of just like pumping your system towards the heart. So starting at your feet, starting at your extremities, and then going in towards your heart can be really great for really addressing the itch, addressing the eczema itself, and then getting the system to heal those areas. All right. The next pillar at Clean Body is called CleanEnviro. And this is so important because our environment can really cause our funnel to overflow. It can cause inflammation in our system. It can trigger so many different things. So, our top recommendations, if you're just starting out, these are the things we really highly recommend that you do. Eat organic and non-GMO. So we do tests with our clients. We do a total tox burden test. And Rachel, how often do we see pesticides in our patients and clients when we do these tests?
So often. When I started doing these tests, I was pretty shocked by what I was seeing in the amount, and what they really show is what is the burden of these exposures on our body. And it's really, really high in the world that we live in. So this is an area where, there is something that you can actively do to minimize your exposure to pesticides. Eating organic. We have in our educational modules that our clients get access to, we have like a produce wash that we recommend that actually helps to minimize the amount of pesticide residue on produce. So there's definitely a good opportunity for really, really reducing that toxic burden here.
Yeah, and definitely check out EWG's Dirty Dozen list. If you can't eat completely organic, check that list out and definitely avoid those. If you're out at a restaurant, I recommend that you still avoid those if they're not labeled as organic. And then there's also EWG has a Clean 15 list where these foods might be okay to buy conventionally if you're trying to save a little bit of money. Okay, so this is number one. It's something we have control over, and it's something that we can make a big change really quickly. Okay. All right. Avoiding alcohol, coffee, cigarettes, and drugs. Now, this seems obvious, but the one of these doesn't seem obvious is the coffee. People often ask about it. Like, why do I have to avoid coffee? I love my coffee. So, Rachel, tell us a little bit about why maybe it's a good idea if you're having eczema to try avoiding coffee for right now.
Yeah, there are a lot of reasons. One is that going back to clean mind, a lot of people, coffee is a drug, caffeine is a drug. And a lot of people experience an increase in anxiety when they have coffee. And you might not even realize or recognize it as anxiety because maybe you've been, having coffee for decades, and that kind of rush to you, it might feel like, oh, okay, I can use this to now go be productive. But it's really not a healthy pattern to be in, to need that like rush of anxiety or cortisol, which is our stress hormone, to be productive. So we want to help you like naturally balance those cortisol rhythms so that when you wake up in the morning, you can naturally feel energized and not need coffee. Coffee also impairs absorption of a lot of nutrients. It can interfere with how we metabolize hormones. So especially for women, it can cause issues with like potential estrogen dominance. So a lot of reasons to avoid coffee.
Yeah, and on that note, it's not necessarily just coffee, but other caffeine sources, and coffee would just be that highest one. And then things like matcha actually have some good properties like green tea and all that. But while we're treating you, we also prefer, low caffeine or no caffeine would be great, just so we can really get your hormonal systems back in order. And then afterwards, we may say, okay, and every now and then coffee or caffeine beverage might be okay, a caffeine tea or something like that. And then, we also want you to pay attention to other things like mold free coffee and other things, because mold can definitely grow in your coffee as well too. Check your home for mold. And that brings us to our next one. So mold is a big one that we actually do a lot of testing for as well. And we often do just everybody who comes through our practice, we often do this test called the total tox burden, which covers pesticides and environmental toxins, and it also covers mold toxins as well too. And unfortunately, because our buildings and our homes are being built with cheaper materials, mold is becoming a bigger and bigger problem, and it's often really silent. So if you've ever had water damage in your home, you want to check for that. If you go to the product recommendations and you go to tests, you can check out a mold home test that we do recommend that you can actually just order and check out your home and see if there's anything to worry about there. But also, Rachel, mold can be in our food. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so a lot of our foods are pretty shelf stable for a pretty long period of time. And in that time, they can grow mold. And just because you don't see mold, whether it's in your home or on your food, doesn't mean it's not there. The spores can be there, and they can be invisible to the naked eye. That's why in your home, we recommend, testing, even if you don't see mold, just because it is so, so common. With food, so things like coffee is a big one. Peanuts are another one that often contain mold. Any grains, corn, even like beans and nuts and seeds. Again, think about like these pantry staples that we have that tend to be stored for a long period of time.
Yeah. So definitely something to think about. And I often see it correlated with a certain presentation on the skin. I like to call it mapping, where we kind of see these little, almost like little continents on your body of red patches. And sometimes that can indicate yeast, mold, fungus, things like that, potentially growing in the system, candida. And so often, when I meet someone for a discovery consultation, I want to see those pictures, because the presentation of your skin can also help us to understand what those root causes might be. All right. Check your dental work, root canals and amalgams. And these, unfortunately, can be really toxic. So your root canals can harbor infections in them. Now, what's a root canal? It's basically a dead tooth that you kept in your mouth for more like cosmetic reasons, not necessarily health reasons. And your dentist was maybe trying to save that tooth for the cosmetic reason. However, we no longer have vessels and blood going to that area, so we won't really be notified when there's an infection. So in a root canal, sometimes there could be these silent infections that can cause problems and inflammation in our system, which can lead to things like eczema and a whole host of problems. Amalgams are those metal fillings that are made of mercury, and those are leaking and leaching mercury into our system every single day. When you're eating hot food, that mercury might be leaking into your system. So dental work is really, really important. I do highly recommend that you see, just like seeing our team, where we're really looking at your whole system. There are dentists that are called biologic dentists, and I do recommend seeing a biological dentist to get a more holistic approach to your dentistry. And lastly, we want you to filter your air and your water. Rachel, tell us what can be in the water that we might need to filter out, and what we might want to do to assess that, and then also make sure it's clean.
Yeah, so water can have and does have all kinds of nasty stuff in it. Some things that are added, like fluoride, that we don't necessarily need for our health or want to be healthy, as well as pesticides, anything that could potentially be in the soil, runoff, heavy metals, Sometimes there's parasites. I know where I live, a couple months ago, we had a warning that there were parasites in the water. And, a lot of times it takes like a high level for you to be notified of those things. So it's a great idea you can look up your municipality's water testing. That is public information. But you may notice that like, oh, there's a certain level of lead in the water that's just okay. It's not necessarily okay, especially if you have like chronic health conditions like eczema. You can also test your water in your home, because the pipes that run through your home could also be adding additional contaminants if they're made of lead, or even like PVC, plastic. So you can test your home water. And then we recommend that, you filter your water. Filtered water is better than bottled water because we don't want you drinking out of plastic. That's adding just more contaminants to the water, even if it started out as pretty clean. So something like a reverse osmosis filter is great. A Berkey filter, or like one of those gravity filter systems. There's a few different brands out there, and we have some recommendations on our website. Something like a refrigerator filter, like a carbon filter, is not really going to do too much. It might make your water taste a little bit better, but it's not really sufficient to get all of those contaminants out.
Yeah, and you want to filter every single piece of water that touches you from internally. So your drinking water, but also your sink water too. So in our product recommendations page, again, the link is in my bio, or go to our website at cleanbody.health/products. And you can see under filters, you can see all of our water filters. So we have shower filters, sink filters, drinking water filters, reverse osmosis filters, whole house filters, etc. And you also can go to the tests section to look at a test called TAP score, where you can actually test your water and see, what contaminants are in there. And then your air in your home, unfortunately, is also not very clean. We're doing things like cooking indoors, which can create carcinogens, and we're not really airing out our homes. And so there's stale, stagnant air, there's dust, and all of these things can also trigger eczema. So getting a really good air filter for the home is a good idea. And again, we have a couple recommendations in our product recommendations page. So definitely check that out. All right. And lastly, we like to say that everyone should create a clean routine for themselves. And that means that on a daily basis, we need to make sure that your exits are working really well, that you're having really good bowel movements, that you're urinating, that you're sweating, and that you're breathing. So that's really important. Otherwise, the funnel is going to overflow, right? So we just need to make sure that those exits are working well so that all these toxins can get out of your system. So you want to check your poops. A type 4 poop this is a Bristol chart, and we want to see a type 4 poop. And so Rachel, tell us about the type 4 poop and what happens and what should we do if we see things other than a type 4 poop?
Yeah, so a type 4 poop, it should look kind of like a snake. It's formed, but it's kind of smooth. You're not seeing anything other than poop in there. So you're not seeing pieces of food. You're not seeing blood. You're not seeing mucus. If you go towards the lower end, so toward a type 1, you're moving in the direction of constipation. Easiest first thing you can do if you start noticing that is drink more water. Think about how much water you're drinking. Constipation is so common because people don't drink enough water. And again, this is another reason why clean water is so important, because we do want you drinking a lot of it. So you're putting so much of that in your body. You want to make sure that that's clean. If you're moving toward the other end of the spectrum where your stool is getting looser, more toward diarrhea, or you're noticing things in it, there are lots of different reasons for that. Could be that you're digesting your food too quickly. Could be that morning coffee that's contributing to that. A lot of people experience diarrhea after having coffee because it's just speeding things up. And if you're speeding things up, there's not time for you to absorb nutrients from your food. So it can also be really irritating to the GI tract, which can cause a host of other issues. But yeah, lots of different potential causes for kind of going away from that type 4.
And if you're having anything other than a type 4, this is like the first thing we need to take care of. And when we work with people at Clean Body, often the diet plays a big role, but then there's also the mental health aspect of it. If you're not moving your body or drinking water. So all of the pillars actually play a role in what your poop looks like. And if we get your poop looking better, your skin's going to get better. That's not even a question for us. That's an equal sign. If your poop gets better and it looks really healthy, the skin is going to get better too. So it's one of the first things we really like to look at. Other things we like to pay attention to in creating a good routine for you is making sure you're getting breath in, making sure you're drinking half your weight in ounces of water daily or more if you're exercising and sweating and moving your body if you can, and getting a really good night's rest. And, for every person, depending on your age, there is a different duration of sleep that you should be having. So, as you can see here, with kids, we really need to have them have longer sleep. They need to be healing and growing during that time. As we get older, we actually don't need as much sleep. So, you can see as you age, so for myself, I would need 7 to 9 hours, but my daughter, who's 15, needs 8 to 10 hours. And this is really important. If you have eczema, you need to be sleeping in order to heal. This is when your skin is going to heal. We need to get adequate sunlight exposure. So, Rachel, why is sunlight so important?
Yeah, so people probably know you get vitamin D from the sunlight, but that's not the only benefit. Getting exposure to sunlight also helps to set our circadian rhythm. So if we get exposure to sunlight first thing in the morning, our body kind of knows, okay, we're waking up now. It's morning time, and it sort of starts a timer in your brain so that it knows when it should be calming you down for rest that evening. If you get exposure to the spectrum of light that the sun emits in late afternoon, that can also help to set that timer to say, like, okay, bedtime's coming. So getting sunlight throughout the day is super important. A lot of us do not get enough. We are stuck in front of this artificial light from our computers and our phones and fluorescent lights in offices, and it's just the wrong kind of light for what our body understands. So get exposure to sunlight a few times a day, as much as you can.
And a lot of us eczema people know that phototherapy is one of those therapies that we are told to do to help our eczema. And, getting out in the sun is actually natural phototherapy. And, it's something that we really need. And often when we get out there in the sun, our skin does start to heal. Now, what I do have to say though is for people who have really severe eczema, if you have a lot of open wounds, a lot of inflammation, sometimes the sun is going to hurt a little bit. So I don't recommend doing it if you're just having a lot of open wounds. I usually recommend let's heal you a little bit first. Let's get things moving in the system. Let's get those exits open. And once that skin starts to heal a little bit, now let's get you out into the sun so that that skin can fully heal. And often that's what we need to get you to the finish line, is just sun, water, food, just those basic things. Okay. All right. And if you are interested in just kind of understanding what your clean body pillars look like, you can take our free pillars assessment. The link is in our bio. So check that out. And it basically will ask you a bunch of questions for each of these sections to understand, how you are doing in each of these pillars and maybe where you need to do a little bit of work. All right. If you're interested in working with our team, so Rachel is one of the practitioners on our team. And if you worked with our team, you would work with myself, with one of our practitioners. If you're interested in that, we start with a discovery consultation, and that is directly with me. So I'll be meeting with you, evaluating your health, understanding, what steps we need to take to get to the root cause. And you can get 30% off that discovery consultation. Click the link in my bio, book a consultation, consultation and use the code IGDC30. And we do have a 100% money back guarantee on this consultation. So if you do not feel that you have gotten a lot of information about how to get to the root cause, what are the possible root cause issues for you, what tests we're going to use, and what treatment might look like. If you don't have a really good understanding of that by the time the consultation is over, you can ask for your money back. All right. And some of the labs we talked about today are available for direct order, and they do come with a discovery consultation with me. So we can just kind of talk about what your next steps might be after those labs. You can click the link in my bio, order labs, and get $100 off using the code IGLAB100. And if you want to just kind of read this information, maybe you missed this live or you don't have time to watch it, there is a blog on this exact information that we've been talking about. You can click the link in my bio and click blog. And I would love to open it up for questions now. So, as a reminder, everything we're talking about here is for educational purposes only. And if you do want to really get evaluated, understand if these are some factors that are happening with you, definitely book a consultation and use that code IGDC30 to get 30% off, so that we can just kind of discuss what might be going on for you, because not everyone is going to have all of these root cause issues, and we want to understand what is it for you. Okay, so I'd love to open it up to questions now. Please go ahead and type into the comments box and let us know what your questions are. We're happy to answer any and all questions. Thank you, Rachel, so much for joining me today. And again, any questions, and the topic that we're talking about is lifestyle and eczema. And our topic is your lifestyle hurting or helping your eczema? And it's a big one, because we have so much control over a lot of the things that are triggering our eczema, triggering inflammation in our body. This can be something that's really important. So let's go back and see. I know there were some questions earlier, so I'm going to go back and see what those questions were. I think somebody had asked, can dry brushing help with the redness? Okay, so if you have a lot of redness on your skin, you may not want to do dry brushing, because there's already too much inflammation there. And by dry brushing, it will not necessarily help with the redness. It may actually cause more redness and more inflammation. So you don't necessarily want to do dry brushing if there's a lot of redness and inflammation. Instead, what I might recommend is just a gentle lymphatic massage on that area. And even if there's a lot of redness, I may actually recommend cold therapy. And so one thing I really love is an ice roller. So you can do an ice roller, stick it in the freezer so that it gets cold, and then roll it on that area rather than doing the dry brushing. Just because that might be too irritable on the skin, the dry brushing. Okay, what's your take on MRI? Can you just tell me what you mean by MRI for this person? Just type it into the comments box, just to make sure that I'm answering the right question there. All right. And any questions, please go ahead and type into the comments box. Again, we're happy to answer any and all questions. While we're waiting on questions, I'll just let you know what happens if you do decide to book a consultation. It will be directly with me, and we will be asking you for a couple of things. We're going to ask you for pictures of your skin. And the reason for that, as I mentioned earlier, is that the presentation of your skin is really important. How your skin looks might tell me a little bit about what the root causes might be, whether it's liver burden, gut burden, whether it's toxins, microbes, pathogens. And so pictures of your skin are really important. And so we give you access to our journal system. And in that journal system, you're going to upload those pictures, and we'd love to see pictures of the skin. Rachel, what do we want to see from a nutritional point of view when we're asking people, for an assessment in terms of their food?
Yeah, so we want to see photos of what you're eating, meals, snacks, beverages, the good, the bad, and the ugly. We want to see it all. Sometimes folks have a tendency to want to censor themselves and only show us the good stuff, but we want to see it all, because it's really our job when we're working one-on-one with you to help figure out, like, okay, why is coffee still showing up? Or how can we get this, this sandwich with gluten in it at lunch switched up to something healthier? We really work very closely with our clients to give them that practical kind of support, not just say like, okay, go gluten-free, go dairy-free and kind of figure it out. We're there more to hold your hand. So we want to see where that stuff's coming in. And we also want to celebrate when you have those really nice, beautiful looking rainbow plates.
Yes. And the other thing we want to see, and I know this is a little odd, but we actually do want to see your poops. And what goes in your mouth is as important as what comes out of your body. And again, as we spoke about, those type 4 poops are what we're shooting for. And if we're seeing poops that don't look like type 4, then we want to, figure out what's going on. And that can also tell me a little bit about what the root causes might be for you. We also want to know about other things like stress. We want to know how you're sleeping. We want to know if you have bad dreams, even if you're having nightmares every night. This could be telling us about subconscious things and traumas that might still be lingering in the system. We want to also see labs. We don't need to have you do labs before the discovery consultation, but we'd like to see whatever labs you already have from any doctors that you've seen. And then we'll, I'll look those over and say, okay, this is what this might mean. And we can maybe we want more labs to understand more of this, and that, and explain what those labs might be. And then we're going to meet virtually for about 25 to 30 minutes. And I'm going to understand your story. I'm going to hear your story. I'm going to look at your skin and all of your journal entries and your labs. And we're going to figure out together, okay, what's the best course of getting you better? So what labs are important? What would treatment look like? What does changing your diet look like? What does changing your lifestyle look like? And we'll talk all about that. Okay. So if you're interested in that, use the code IGDC30 for 30% off. And then the person who asked about MRI. Okay, so you're literally just talking about getting an MRI, so magnetic resonance imaging. And yes, so when you're going to get an MRI, typically there's a reason for that, right? Typically, they're needing to know more information. And if that's a requirement, if that's necessary for a doctor to accurately diagnose what's going on with you, it's something that you might need to do. But yes, they are typically going to inject a heavy metal into you. And then they're going to use that for the imaging. And that definitely can be a toxic thing that you're getting injected into your system. So I do have recommendations for our patients and clients when they do that, to take some detox support, during and after that time frame, if it's okay with the doctor. And then also x-rays and other imaging as well, where they don't necessarily do injections. I typically recommend certain homeopathic remedies to protect the system. So when people are working with us, we have that in our educational modules, and then also we can recommend that individually. Okay. All right. And any other questions, please go ahead and type into the chat box. If you missed our conversation today, we are talking about whether your lifestyle is hurting or helping your eczema. And if you did miss it, we are going to post this on YouTube and on Instagram. And there is a blog as well. So you can check out the blog on our website, cleanbody.health/blog. And I don't see any questions coming in. So thank you so much, Rachel, for joining me in this conversation today. And if you guys have any questions, definitely reach out to us, DM me, or email us at info@cleanbody.health. All right, everyone, have a great